Three, two, one. We should be live. Hello, everybody. It is DCA. It's Friday. We are on my channel. I'm here, honored to be with Ben and Rob. Ben from Into the Cryptoverse and Rob from Digital Asset News. Actually, why don't we get this out of the way right away and just showcase their channels? Sure. The link is in the description below. If you haven't already subscribed, it's highly unlikely. But if you haven't, please do. You've got Into the Cryptoverse, wealth of information from Ben, and of course, a ton of wealth and experience as well from Rob, Digital Asset News. So a lot to do there. So let's, first of all, check in with you guys. Happy Friday. I know the markets are down, a lot of nervousness, nuclear reactors hit and such. Things seem to be going a little bit worse than people had imagined. What do you guys see out there in the world today?
Oof. Ben, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think the nuclear reactor, I think it was an administrative building that was on fire. Is that what I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely worrisome if they are attacking a nuclear reactor. I actually have a PhD in nuclear engineering, so I know a little bit about this stuff. Yeah, we certainly don't want to see something like that play out. I mean, I think that, you know, we are in a situation right now where, you know, it's risk off, right? I mean, it's been risk off for months now. I mean, obviously we're going through periods where it's sort of risk on and whatnot, but with everything going on in the world and with inflation and the Fed, it just seems like everyone's spooked, you know, and everyone's sort of flocking back to fiat currencies. And you can see this, like the dollar is skyrocketing as well. Another day where the dollar's going up. Yeah, I mean, from a geopolitical stance, I'm not an expert on it, but it is certainly concerning the whole nuclear reactor stuff, because the fallout from stuff like that it doesn't just affect Ukraine. You know, it affects everyone, especially in people in Europe. So that certainly has to be on very high alert to hear.
And to quell fears, you're dead right. So I got a message late last night because I was very concerned about that, fearing another Fukushima or Chernobyl type situation, and this is from somebody who is paying attention and on the ground. To summarize, so far no damage to any reactors. They are not likely to be damaged by ballistics due to their resilience. Fire was only in an administrative building, like you said, and firefighters were allowed to enter and put it out. Russia wants to control the station and not destroy it. So that's the message.
Right. That's the thing. Like there was one thing I heard online, and it was saying that the reactor building was on fire. And then when I dug more, I was like, oh no, it's just an administrative building. So I think things are still fine right now. But one thing to consider though is a lot of that. I mean, you want people who know what they're doing to be operating that stuff. I mean, there's definitely safeguards in place as well. But you would like to have people operating it that aren't under the pressures of war and, you know, fighting an enemy just a few yards away. So it is a concerning situation, but we haven't gotten to the point where, you know, it's not like Chernobyl 2.0 or anything like that.
Nope, not at all.
No,
but of course, the media loves to be alarmist as well, which rattles markets to a large extent. Rob, what's your view of the world?
I think my view of the world is sensationalism sells, and of course the news is going to do things like that because, you know, they know it'll get eyeballs in, right? And we're not immune to that. For our compatriots here on YouTube, we see a ton of those types of thumbnails. But what I do see is just exactly what you see, where everybody else sees, is that there's a lot of risk off. And you can even see it like with the price of gold. I mean, it's even risen up just a little bit. Not that it's going to take over everything, but it's interesting that people are going to, and I still don't understand this, why people are going to gold in this time. And I know the narrative around it, but how much better is Bitcoin than gold can be, especially if you are someone who wants to have a real store of value as far as wealth, and you're fleeing a country with only the clothes on your back and your kids in your hands, and gold could be one of those things that you're going to use, because you're not going to be able to take, I mean, some types of currency, but as everything goes down, especially with the ruble. So when I see these things, I'm like, why do people get into like this metal? And before any gold bug attacks, just know that I own gold and silver, but I own a hell of a lot more Bitcoin. I just don't understand. But I see how people are scared, and I understand that we've never really been in the preemptive early days, weeks, or months, or maybe even years of a potential long-standing war. So it's interesting to see how Bitcoin, crypto and digital assets are going to actually make out. But I see how things are first, but we'll see if rationality wins out in the end.
Yeah, interesting. Let's jump into the first topic. So we got a couple of very interesting topics today. The first topic is kind of crypto returns in 2022. A lot of people are concerned. Is this a place you want to be in 2022? If so, where? How far away are we from a bottom, etc.? Could it be a sideways year, or are there any sectors that you prefer over others? Very interesting what you said about gold as well, Rob, because one of the things that we did see on Feb 24th was gold rallied first, and about 6 to 12 hours later, Bitcoin followed. Gold is rallying now. Will Bitcoin follow this time around? I think it's a different situation. We don't have the same type of short squeeze, but so crypto 2022, what do you guys see happening? Because the type of news feed we've had over the past 6 weeks has been mind-boggling. There's been so many good advertisements, starting with most recently Lugano in Switzerland, to the Canadian trucker rally, to the stuff that's going on across Ukraine with donations, and then oligarchs trying to move some of their wealth into Bitcoin. It's been a bumper year in terms of showcasing the value of this asset. But where do you think we're going to go in 2022?
I'll take it first. This is probably one of the tougher years to really take an outlook for, because there's so many unvariables right now. One of those, and the biggest variable that we have is this war. And you can take a look at the sanctions that are going on, and even like if historically, if you take a look back with how well sanctions have done in the past, especially with look back to the pre World War II, when there were sanctions against Japan, and they tried to hold out oil, and then of course we know how that worked out. And then it became like a bigger issue than what it was. So the thing is, and I know before we even started, Ben said, is Putin 5 steps ahead, or is he just losing control? He says it's probably more realistic that he's 5 steps ahead. So if that is true and things don't escalate, I think we should be okay in the short term. But if we don't, and things do escalate, which I think it will, especially with the NATO countries around and the U.S. saying that we're not going to go into a no-fly zone, I think you can't. What's really going to happen is people are going to get more nervous. They're going to go into those more risk-off type of assets, and there's going to be a lot of more money being printed out, so we can put that into defense spending, which I think won't be good for anybody. So it all depends. It really, right now, it depends on how far this escalates, because this thing has got me a little bit concerned, but I don't know. For me right now, the best thing I can say to do is the same thing I've been doing for a while, is just sticking with the basics, consolidating all the losers of crypto from the past and getting the ones that actually are doing quite well even right now. That's the big thing.
Yeah, well, I'm up just to shed a bit of hope, because that sounded a little bit ominous.
That was bleak. I'm sorry, but it's one of those days for me.
So they did have some peace talks on the border of Belarus this morning, and apparently the Russian narrative was they want to save lives and not kill anymore. So maybe that's a little glimmer of hope that maybe we can come to some type of peace talk, better peace talk in the near future. I think it has kind of backfired. The strategy was wrong. They underestimated the will of the Ukrainian people. So fingers crossed. But Ben, do you see any crypto returns in 2022? What would you do? What would you tell the audience? What you see as the outlook?
Yeah, so my general outlook for at least the first half of this year has been more or less the same. So I'm very heavy Bitcoin and stablecoins right now. I have some altcoin positions, but I haven't actually. I mean, and I've to full disclosure, I've missed out on some gains because some altcoins have rallied, but I have not bought any altcoins in like 3 months at this point. I'm trying to be patient on those. I think that when Bitcoin's in a downtrend and every pump is getting sold off, and you have the dollar trending higher, you have stocks trending lower, you have gold trending higher, you have the Fed fighting inflation and rolling over the balance sheet, and also this war in Europe, it's hard for me to look at that and say, oh, I want to go buy an altcoin. just because I've seen what can happen. Like I've seen what happened in the second half of 2019. I saw what happened in 2018. I saw what happened in 2014. So what I'm looking for is, from a mathematical perspective, taking the news out of it, one of the things we've seen before is that major bottoms tend to occur 1 year after the 1 year ROI tops. And the 1 year ROI actually topped in March of 2021. So plus or minus a couple months on that. So I'm actually, if Bitcoin does have another leg down, and we see sort of a bottom on the 1 year ROI here in the next 1 to 2 months, then I would be getting a lot more optimistic on Bitcoin just from like a pure like mathematical perspective. Right now, I'm still somewhat uneasy on the whole altcoin market. So again, for me, Bitcoin and stablecoins until either Bitcoin has a more clear capitulation to go back to some of the more historic levels, or Bitcoin shows strength and can actually get back above, say, like its 20-week moving average and start to rally. If it can do that and stocks start trending higher, then we're back to risk on.
Super interesting approach and very logical too. In fact, we'll talk more about this, but you could also argue, historically, when you look at Bitcoin, how it evolves, the bear market, you could argue, began in June 2021. And typically it lasts about a year, especially when you look at the MVRVZ score. So we're close to the lower end of the range, and maybe we've been in a bear market without knowing it for quite a while. You seem to agree.
Yeah, I think it looks like a flat correction. One of those like Elliott. I'm not an Elliott wave expert, but if you look at Elliott wave, there's like expanded flats and there's flats. An expanded flat or a flat correction would actually say the bottom's already in. An expanded flat would say we're going to go sub 30K before bouncing higher.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of that, switching gears. Topic number 2. Where is the next Bitcoin low? Where is the new floor, new support? Now, if you look back at Bitcoin, we had the summer low, 29K. We had the September low, what was it, 32. Then we had the December, January floor, 35-ish K. We went down February 24th to 35K as well, and it was bought up fast. Where do you guys see the next Bitcoin floor? Rob, I'll give it to you first.
Yeah, this is because when I first got into YouTube, I had to kind of figure out where just my investment strategy actually was. And I actually talked about, like, this was before I even did like videos with my actual face. And I thought that, and I just use a very simple thing, which is fractals. I just take a look at how long it took from the all-time high from the first Bitcoin bull run to the next one. Then I kind of just take a look at the actual percentage and I go, okay, well, I think this is where I got that $150,000 number. I think at some point Bitcoin could hit 150K at the end of the year, hopefully. And I thought a year after that, just looking at how it actually went down, I said 30K could potentially be my bottom number. So I always said that if I'm going to dollar cost average, I'm going to stop dollar cost averaging Bitcoin until it goes below 30K. Now, as time has gone on, I'm like, well, I'll play around with it. 32, 34, 36 is not so much of a big thing. So I think around 30K could be it, but that was just a very basic type of thing. But just real quick to go back, even as negative as I was in my response to your question, and Ben was pretty positive, Ben's still going for like the very super conservative way. And I look at this time as like, not to like buy these dips like massively, but this is where I made all my money in 2018 and 2019, 2020. I would just buy at these certain points, either every day, every 3 days, every week. And it worked out pretty good. If I'm wrong and it goes down way farther, like 20K or 10K, I mean, it won't kill me, but I think if we go to like 28, 30, and then everything kind of bounces around, I think I'll be okay in the long run in like 3 years. I think it's out. I'll be okay.
Yeah. Ben, what say you about the floor, if there is one? Like we're dipping right now.
I mean, like, I'd always love it if 30K held. I mean, I think that would be the most, or at least whatever we've tested already. We already went to 33K. That's the most optimistic scenario at this point that we already bottomed. I have learned in my own experience to always assume there's more downside risk because I've been wrecked plenty of times in this market. So I would say, as crazy as it sounds, like 20K, it is a possibility. It is certainly a possibility, and I say that mainly because anytime Bitcoin has had weekly closes below the 50-week moving average, it then goes down to the 100-week and consolidates for a couple months. before then dropping to the 200 week. And so we did that, right? We closed below the 50 week. We've been now down at the 100 week for a couple, a month or so. And if we get that final leg down, that's the 200 week moving average. I have no idea if we're actually going to go there, but that would be where I would go a lot heavier into the market if we were to go down to that level. And that's actually the reason why I'm still altcoin light, because the problem is that altcoins, anytime Bitcoin resumes this downtrend, altcoins just get wrecked in their Bitcoin valuations, right? Like, so their altcoin USD and their altcoin Bitcoin valuations tend to bleed when Bitcoin's in a downtrend below its 20-week SMA. So that's why I think it makes sense to be really light on altcoins until either Bitcoin capitulates or shows strength. So 20K, I think, is a pretty conservative scenario target, but I also recognize it might not happen, and so I'm still DCAing Bitcoin regardless.
Yeah, I personally don't think 20K would happen. I think the lowest we could possibly go would be 29K, but that is barring any black swan event, like somebody hitting a button. Heaven forbid. Topic number 3 for you guys. The Bitcoin most likely scenario. So we're going to play a little game here. 2 scenarios. One, we move to peace real fast. Fingers crossed. 2, a long protracted war. So, considering scenario number 1, do we have a melt up? Do we stay sideways? Or is it still a weak market? And if it's a long protracted war, what happens? What do you guys see? Ben, to you first. Gosh. I know it's a little bit of a tricky one.
I guess it's, to some degree, it probably depends on how big things escalate, I was actually looking at the NASDAQ yesterday and looking at tech stock, because I wasn't an investor back in the .com bubble. I wish I had paid more attention, but I was not old enough to really understand everything. I was actually looking at how heated things were back then compared to today. And actually, things were a lot more heated back then compared to where tech stocks are today. As crazy as that sounds, like if you look at the extension from its own 200-week moving average, during the .com bubble, things were a lot crazier than what we've seen recently. So I think that tech stocks and the stock market in general can actually rebound here over the next month or so, and like I think it's more likely that the stock market, like stocks, will close up this year than down. But I don't know exactly where the bottom is. Like it could already be in. Maybe the stock, stocks have already bottomed, or maybe we have another leg down. But I still think that as the year goes on, things should look a little bit better. As far as the war goes, I think from what we've seen before, the historical returns on stocks tend to be quite good when something like that happens. But it's the 12-month returns that are good. Sometimes the 30-day returns on average are, they can still be kind of low or negative. I don't remember exactly what it is. It depends on what index you're looking at. But the 30-day it's more of a wash, whereas the 1-year ROI after a major conflict tends to actually be, I think it tends to be double digits, maybe, depending on the actual index we're looking at. So yeah, I would say still some risky times here over the next month or two, but hopefully after we actually see the Fed start to actually raise interest rates and people start to, and they actually do something rather than talking about doing something, we'll actually see how the market responds.
Yeah, I think the Fed is no longer a concern. They've been very vocal and, showcasing what they're going to do next. So I'm not concerned about that. So basically then, peace and melt up for Bitcoin. What's your conclusion, Ben?
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to have a melt up for Bitcoin, not at least in the first half of this year. I'm not seeing that. I think that the best case scenario for at least the next few months would be for us to just kind of chop sideways between like 30 and 50K or something. That's like probably the best case scenario for the next.
I'll take that.
For the next 2 or 3 months, I would say that's the best case scenario. But look, later this year, Q3, Q4. Why not? I mean, things, market changes on a dime, right? I mean, it really does. And again, another thing to look at is the dollar. Okay, so it bottomed in 2018 and late 2020 and early 2021, but actually it's also getting up to historical resistance here if it continues higher, if it goes to like 103, 104. So if that happens over the next, say, 3 months or so, then I would actually get really bullish on risk on assets going into the end of the year. But it's hard to really say super far out. I don't know that whether it's peace or war, I don't think it's going to change Bitcoin's, the next 2 to 3 months. I don't think it's going to have an effect.
Yeah, interesting.
Not at least an effect. Not at least it could have some effect, but I don't think it's going to send Bitcoin to 100K or something in say just a few months, regardless of what happens.
Rob, what say you? Peace or war impact on Bitcoin price?
Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but if it is war, I mean, maybe you might want to throw a little money into Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Boeing and those types of companies, because I mean, war is big business. But besides that, I mean, the getting back to that whole thing about how China wants to get off the U.S. dollar, Russia's running to get away from it. They actually approved a bunch of different things for crypto as far as legislation wise goes. I just don't see how this won't accelerate that for different countries. There was an interview with Bill Miller a couple of days ago, and he talked about how it actually is very bullish for Russia and Bitcoin, because they have a percentage, so much of their percentage of that $630 billion of their reserve. I think he said like over around 18
gold.
to 20%.
Yep.
Yeah, 20% gold, but then also into actual fiat, and a good amount of that is into US dollar, which of course it's all through the oligarchs, but it's through also other types of currencies. So he said the problem is when you can freeze that, especially if it's 20% and whatnot. He goes, well, that's why they want to get off it. I mean, there's only one place you can go to where you can actually hold an asset that can actually be a store of value, and you control everything instead of these other countries controlling it for you. And I go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then he talked about a little bit about CBDCs and how they just wouldn't make any sense I mean, do you really think that Russia's going to trust America with a CBDC from the United States of America, where they could just not only sanction, but just turn everything off at a dime? I just don't see how that's going to work. Yep. And especially when China comes out, no one's touching the digital yuan outside of China. At least I'm not. I mean, not that I'm everything, but I don't think a lot of people are. So I see these things. I'm like, this actually is a good narrative for Bitcoin. The thing is, will people actually understand it in time? So
yeah, will they do the 100 hours or 1,000 hours of study? So this is next point, topic number 4. And Ben, you touched on it coincidentally. So I made a video yesterday about stagflation. It's very clear as day. I saw it 8 months ago. I said 6 to 12 months from now, we're going to have stagflation. Looks like it's coming. So the question people have is it safer now to leave the market and park their money in stable coins and get 10% yield or 20% yield? Or completely back out of markets or stay in the market? I think we know where you are, Ben, already. Like it's like 50-50, heavy stable coins, heavy Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think heavy stable, heavy Bitcoin it makes the most sense right now. That way you're hedged either way, really.
Yep. Good.
No, I mean that's perfect, and like that's one of those things where I was talking about this a couple of days ago, but it makes sense though. I mean, where else can you get 9, 11, 12% different places for savings of that's back to the dollar? I mean, you're not going to get that in the banks, for Pete's sake. So it only makes sense. Just let it sit there and just, let it go. Imagine if you had I don't have this, but let's just say $1 million into stable coins. It'd be nice just to, throw in there 10%, get $100,000 a month. I'm just saying that's not too bad, or roughly.
Yeah. But then again, you have other situations where I'm a little bit different to you guys. I don't mind risk. Actually, it's almost like I find it playful. It's a little bit like a casino to me at this stage in my life. But, buying Luna at 45, it goes straight to 87. So you're making 80% in a week or 8 days.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I mean, what about that? They're jumping in, jumping out, buying things when they're crushed down. The volatility of some of the top L1s is extreme, but you can pick up 20% a week pretty easy. So would that be a riskier strategy than getting 20% a year in a stable coin?
I mean, look, man, you can do it, but how many times, like James, have at it, man. But I'm going to guess that not every trade you've done has been successful. I'm just going to throw it out there. So and not everybody, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on this chat which will attest to that not everything works out. It really depends on, what's your tolerance for risk and how deep you want to go and how well versed you are in it. Because I get things all the time about people with leverage plays. So it's all depends on what you want to do. But that's why we're different. And that's
Well,
why this
yeah.
channel works, is I'm
And,
not that.
and when I went hard into the market though on Feb 24th, it was mostly synthetic longs on equities, which paid off pretty well. So it's the riskiest thing you could possibly do. But my point is though, does it make sense for people to sit and wait in stable coins and not miss that market opportunity? Because we all know that if you miss the top 25 days of the past 11 years in Bitcoin, you miss 90% of the gains. And that's the factor. So I'm very big on looking at history and the numbers and the days you want to be on the train. If you miss those days because you're on the sidelines, it can be very costly. I'll kick that one to Ben because I think I see you nodding there.
I mean, I think it depends on how closely someone's watching the market. I just do crypto full time at this point, right? But like if I had a full time job doing something else, I might not have the ability to monitor the market that closely, to catch those bottoms, to sell the rallies as easily. I think it just depends on how much risk people want to take on. I think that for a majority of people, stable coins earning interest does make a lot of sense. But for people who are more experienced like you and have no problem coming in and catching each capitulation wick and then fading out all those moves and like taking profits as it bounces and then coming back in to catch another wick. Like if you can do that, like that's great. And I think there are a lot of people that do that, but being able to do that consistently and successfully, I think it's easier said than done. Like I'm sure you're probably a lot better at it than a lot of people, including myself. So I would actually get wrecked, I think, if I try to do that too much. So I personally just stay mostly with Bitcoin and stable coins until the market either is looking healthier, meaning Bitcoin shows strength, or when like the last bulls have given up hope. That's when you really want to go big. And I'm talking more so for like the long-term plays, right? Like I'm more of a long-term person, not a short-term. I mean, I think you're long-term and short-term, right? You see the long-term play, but you also want to take advantage of the short-term volatility. I'm just interested in the long-term. So like if I wait for it to capitulate and then buy, or if I wait for Bitcoin to show strength and then buy altcoins, I don't really care. One of those two things is going to happen, and then I'll become riskier in the market. Until then, stable coins and Bitcoin makes the most sense, I think.
Excellent point. And sometimes I say things just to spark a conversation, be devil's advocate. So if you guys are in violent agreement, I'm going to say something that's off the rails. So great feedback. So next question, topic number 5, war and hegemony. Rob, you being a former vet, do you think, and this is a harebrained scheme, but I've looked at a lot of history, a lot of numbers. Do you think all of war is tied back to money? And for example, the dollar being the global reserve currency and what many people call US hegemony. Do you think that is a trigger for exactly what's going on now? We know that Putin has been trying to get off the US dollar standard for at least 8 years. He's had a long plan to kind of do so. Do you think it's related in any way? The crazy money printing, tying to crazy inflation, tying to maybe a potential great reset down the line, and war. I know people like Jason Lowry is a big believer in this.
No, like, I mean, how many times are things considered crazy until they're actually a reality? So it is very odd, the timing right now. It's very odd that inflation is at some of its all-time highs. We've seen unemployment rates doing not so great, the economy dropping. And I mean, GDP, I can't remember the actual numbers that came out, if it was good or bad, but it just seems like there is a negative connotation right now. And there's one way, it seems like, to get out of these situations. Unfortunately, it's war. It seems like when you start up the whole war machine, there's something to be said to actually for some pretty big gains. And again, that's why we take a look at it. To me, it's amazing how, like, even if the budget doesn't call for it and we don't have the money in America, I can't speak for everybody else, but it's amazing how all the senators and all the congressmen and women can rally together and be like, yeah, we printed trillions, we printed trillions, but that's beforehand. This is for national security. We have to do this. There is no budget. Well, what about for the infrastructure? And what about for some other things that people really need? Wow, we don't have time for that. But this, we always have time for. And it just seems like it's always the same type of thing. Before you know it, and it always kind of goes in the same type of cycle. It just seems that's how it is. And it isn't amazing how we just got out of Afghanistan. and all of a sudden we have just enough time to get back into another one. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I want to say before I get shot. All right.
You could argue we're in another 2-year war too, but we won't mention that either. Ben, what about you? What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very much intertwined. Money and war. I also think too, and we were talking about this before the show some, that Russia has been increasingly moving away from using the dollar as well. And you have to imagine that a lot of these countries in the East would actually prefer for the US dollar to not be the only currency that's the world reserve currency, but to have to move to a different system. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I almost see this as trying to create some type of instability in that, like this whole thing that's going on, like trying to create some type of instability with the US dollar being the world reserve currency. I don't know if they're going to be successful or not, but I have to wonder like what's going on in their heads. Like they had to have known that a war would have caused all these sanctions, and they don't care. Like it doesn't. They're doing it anyways, but they knew this was going to happen, right? So, but you can also see over the last 5 years, they've been moving away from the dollar anyways. So I do think they are very much intertwined. I mean, maybe we're heading to a new normal over the next few years. I don't know. I've never really experienced all of these situations at once. So try to learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah, in fact, if my brand was fiat currency, I wouldn't be a very happy person right now, because everything has hit it all at the same time over the last 8 or 9 weeks, making it a very, very unpopular topic. So before we jump into questions, we'll have a little fun question to bring some levity to the room. And no more Bitcoin, no more war talk. But this is a question that came in. What are the best ideas for nomadic living? So we live in a world where full-time jobs are moving to much more of a gig economy, and people want to live, 4 places in the world every 3 months and just move around. What do you guys see? Is it a trend? I know you could argue as well, Rob. You do a bit of this yourself right now between Puerto Rico and Texas. And I know, Ben, you've moved around too. So, Rob, to you first. Any tips, any ideas for nomadic living? Are you a proponent?
I mean, it depends on where you're at in life, right? If you got a bunch of kids, if you got 2, 3, 4 or 5 kids, I don't see how anybody could do it. Like we were talking about Diddy from the Bitcoin family. I think he's got 2 daughters or 3 daughters. I can't remember. But I mean, he just packs them in the van and then there they go. They're going all over the place. They're on their YouTube channel. It just looks interesting. To me, I'm like, I don't know how you would do that, because it's good to have stability in your life, right? I mean, because especially like with kids, it's good to show them as much as you possibly can, but it's good to have a little stability. And I'm not going to say any way or the other, but to me, it's much easier now. For me and my wife, the kids are gone. So, we can come to Puerto Rico. It's great. And we can, revel in all the different tax benefits and things like that, and then try to look to actually do good, because we've done well before. So to us, it makes sense. But I think for everybody, it doesn't. Some people, I don't think it makes sense, especially if, here's the thing. If you're making some pretty decent money, let's say you make like 100,000 in crypto, not a bad year, right? Pretty good. If you're thinking about moving to Puerto Rico and I want 0, you're not making it. You're not making it, man. And I'll update the video, but you got to make some pretty decent dough to actually make it worth your while. And then all the hassles you got to deal with, all the things you got to learn, all the things you got to set up with. Oh yeah, and then you actually have to find a place and then deal with a new culture. So it can work. It just depends on where you're at in life. And that's
Puerto Rico burn rate is 100K.
What's that? The burn rate?
The burn rate for 100K a year to live?
Dude, I think it's more than that. Wow. Because if you see the prices, anybody who's in California knows what I'm going to say right now. The houses here are California prices.
Wow. Ben, what about you? Going to pack the kids in a van and start traveling around the world? Or any tips?
Yeah, I think for people who want to go in this, I'm not really moving around a lot. We just moved once. But look, the opportunity is in front of us, right? Like you have the entire cryptocurrency asset class. There's so many different things related to it. If you want to get into that type of world where you can move around easily, then build something during the time that the market is bearish. That's what you have to do. And whether that means, you know, you work your day job now and you're building something in the background, and then you slowly build it, and then the next bull run, whether it happens late this year, next year, whenever it occurs, you're ready to go, and then you can take over that lifestyle. But if you don't get out there and try to actually build something, add to the space, then you're not really setting yourself up for that. But I mean, other opportunities all online, right? YouTube is a great opportunity. I don't actually personally monetize, like I don't have AdSense on my channel or anything like that, but I think there's actually a lot of money to be made doing that if you turn AdSense on. You know, I think there's just a lot, and that doesn't even have to be crypto related, right? You could talk about anything. You know, you could make a channel on cars, or, you know, like on history, whatever. There's so many different things you can do. But a lot of it, I think you have to kind of start doing it. At least what I did to get to this point was I had a day job. I worked at a national lab. I would come home, and every night I would just basically, I would make videos, write reports about crypto. I used to talk about a lot. I used to talk a lot about micro caps back in the day, but those videos are all hidden on my channel now. So, but I used to do that way back in the day. And then I was patient. Like I waited for the market to pick back up. So while in the short term, obviously we don't really know what's going to happen with crypto, the price is all over the place. What I am sure of, or what at least I think I'm sure of, is that it will come roaring back. It's just a matter of time. And so if you can use this period to stop focusing on the price every day, especially if you're just going to let your Bitcoin sit anyways, try to build something. And if you're not a tech person, find a tech person and you know, try to build out several ideas, because the space is waiting to boom. I mean, look at the .com bubble, right? A huge bubble in 2000, but all the major companies of today, I mean, look, I mean, where would they exist without the internet? So I think crypto is the future. The people that are building right now, especially if you think about potential up and coming great plays like gaming, is probably going to be big. I have to imagine that the NFT space is still relatively young. I know it's, you know, a lot of the mania phase so far has just been digital art, but I think digital art is just scratching the surface of the things that NFTs will one day be used for. So if you can just take the time and figure out something to build in this space, then, you know, you could be rewarded. And by the way, there's a lot of people already building stuff, because I get solicited 10 times a day to promote something on my channel. So tons of people are building. Try to join them and build something.
Exactly. And to circle that back, if you have that ability to do exactly what Ben and Rob said, it gives you the freedom to work anywhere. It's like, have laptop, will travel, can travel, just jump on a plane, you know, work on the beach in Costa Rica, whatever. And that's the future. So with that, thank you guys. We're going to open up some questions from the audience. And again, we donate everything here. So big thank you for the super chats. First one's from Noah Erickson. I love you guys. So lots of love coming in. No question, just love. The world needs more love these days as well. RemyTheWhippet. This is a question for you, Ben. Ben, a few days ago, everyone had Forbes on the line, but I've been getting ready for a potential date with Destiny. Thanks for helping us navigate the less popular topic of downside risk. So that's just, I think it's just a statement. Yeah. Any comment to Remy?
Yeah, I basically, we're just talking about if we do go to these lower prices, you just want to have the cash on hand to take advantage of it, you know. And that's the point. No one knows where we're going to go, but it's important to at least talk about the downside risk.
Good. Okay, next question from Warhawk. What percentage? I'll give this one to you, Rob. What percentage would you have in your Bitcoin, Solana, Luna, Near protocol allocation? Not financial advice. Any of those names resonate with you? I know you got Bitcoin, but do you have Solana, Luna, and Near protocol?
I have. Have you talked about Solana yet?
Today?
I'm just kidding. No. So just kidding. So yeah. So I'll tell you exactly. So it was Bitcoin, Solana, Near, and what was it?
Luna.
Luna. So Luna, I'd actually purchased a while back, and just because like It was a couple of things that Mike Novogratz talked about. I know he's big into it, and now people are like against VCs, but let's be honest. A lot of times where VC money goes, it seems to help out a project quite ideally. So I actually, as far as Bitcoin, I hold that the most. If you just took those four, I would say it would be like Bitcoin 75%. The next one would be Solana, because I've been dollar cost averaging that for a while. And I actually should have stopped when it went up a little bit too high, but I didn't. But I think in 3 years, I think I'll be okay. For Luna, probably, let's see, 75, probably 10 again for Luna. And the last one was what?
And Near Protocol.
Oh, 5%. And that's because I have a crappy time trying to find where to buy it. I think I bought it on like KuCoin or something like that, which I hate using. So I just think it's like one of those hedges. It could go great, but I figure if I get a little bit, I'm okay. So yeah, pretty much I'm heavy Bitcoin because I don't know where things are going, and it's the safest bet in the most volatile asset class.
Good. And we know, Ben, per you earlier, you backed out of some of the alts. You probably still hold some like Avalanche and Cardano and stuff, but mostly Bitcoin stablecoins, correct?
Yeah, I think like right now, Bitcoin and ETH, not including stablecoins, Bitcoin and ETH make up more than 90% of my portfolio, and Bitcoin is at least 75% of that. So Bitcoin and ETH, 90%, altcoins. I don't know, man. I mean, like I do have a small position in Solana and Luna. I only got Luna because people kept asking me my opinion on it. So I was like, I don't know, I don't follow it. Maybe if I buy some, I'll be more interested. But it's actually been one of the better performing ones. So that actually has my attention. But I would say right now, I don't know that there's many altcoins that I have more than like a 2% allocation in with respect to my entire portfolio, because again, Bitcoin and ETH make up 90% of it. And I only hold about 5 or 6 more altcoins, 5 or 6 altcoins. So they're all relatively low percentages right now. But I will say this, like, like if we go back to risk on, which would be obviously the more optimistic scenario, one nice thing about being Bitcoin heavy is that normally Bitcoin would have to go parabolic for us to really see altcoins rally again. So then you can take some of your Bitcoin profits and then buy the altcoins with them, and then they usually rally after Bitcoin. So just something to keep in mind.
Interesting. And it's very interesting how our allocations are very similar. So I'm of my top crypto, I'm about 70% Bitcoin, 20% ETH, 10% Solana. But I'm into Bitcoin and Ethereum a lot earlier than Solana, like way before early 2021. So that's why these positions are much bigger. And I do not own any Near Protocol. So next question, Ant J. Fallon. Hey team, what are your thoughts on Andre Cronje leaving Phantom Foundation for LinkedIn? I think this guy has his fingers in 10 different DeFi projects. Do you guys know Andre?
Isn't he the one? He's a developer. Has been around like a bunch of different projects.
Yeah, and he's wasn't Yearn Finance and stuff like Cream, Pickle.
Was it Wi-Fi too? Not Wi-Fi. No, Yearn.
Yearn, yeah.
What's Wi-Fi. The one that went up super high?
Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Okay.
He left Phantom. That's scary.
The thing is, he obviously knows what he was doing. What was the deal with Yearn not too long ago? Didn't they have some kind of rug pull situation or something? They lost a bunch of money. I can't remember, but I know he was attached. I know he was attached to one of these projects, even though he's had a plethora of different ones. And it seems like where he goes, good things do happen. But there's also that thing on the flip side where I'm pretty sure there was it was something with, obviously in the code, didn't work out too great. I don't want to spread any kind of FUD, but that's how I remember things. And I remember thinking about this guy. I'm like, it's good that he does things. And he kind of is one of those mad chefs who's like, hey, you got to make an omelet. You got to break a few eggs. And unfortunately, the people that get broken are the ones that are, investing into it. It's not the developers that lose the money. It's the retail investor. So like in this situation, like it's another thing. What's your risk tolerance? So you can follow him and probably be pretty good, but who knows? Phantom, I thought it was a really great project. But who knows? I mean, if he leaves, look how much, look at the people that left Ethereum and they started up pretty good ones. Gavin Woods did Polkadot. Seems to be okay.
Yeah. Okay, next question is from German Girl in Virginia. Robinhood versus Charles Schwab or Fidelity. I like direct deposit and ability to DC into big names in a budget. What is the downside risk of Robinhood? I personally, I don't like Robinhood because they don't have a wallet that's coming. Some people have it in pilot. That's all I heard. Charles Schwab is kind of an old school brokerage, but they did acquire Ameritrade, I think. I'm an Ameritrade user. I like Fidelity. I don't like their trading desktop. It's not as good as Ameritrade unless you have their Power Trader, and then it's almost as good. But I don't know. What do you guys like for DCAing into big names on a budget? You guys, like, what platforms do you find best? I also like FTX.
Are you talking about stock?
It's crypto. I think it's crypto or stock. I'm sure.
Go ahead, Ben.
I've actually never used Robinhood, to be completely honest. I did use Charles Schwab when I was in college, when I bought my first stocks back then. I think the first stock I ever bought was Verizon. But actually now I actually use Fidelity. But I'm not big on intraday trading or even weekly trading or anything like that. So I don't need anything fancy. I basically get on there to buy their 0% expense ratio index funds that buy the market, buy the domestic and international markets. And then I'll buy some of the big name tech stocks, but that's about it. So I use Fidelity. Out of all of those three, I don't use Robinhood or Charles Schwab. I just use Fidelity.
Yeah. And I also do recommend people start getting familiar with DEXs, decentralized exchanges. If everything does go to hell in the handbasket, it's good to be able to be in a position to move stuff around without authoritarian controls. So that's my doomsday prepping that I recommend. Next question is from Beedy McGee. This might be a good one for you, Rob. With all the women and children who are fleeing war-torn countries, what would you recommend we do to teach women how to buy and store assets like Bitcoin to help them build freedom?
It's the same thing I think we teach everybody. I don't think there's much of a difference for what we do. Well, yeah, that's not true, because I'm not even going to pretend to think that I know the female mind. My wife tells me all the time, I don't know what I'm talking about. But there is the message is, as far as what the marketing message should be, and the value proposition should be designated to the person that you're trying to talk to, right? So what that demographic is. If that is a female between the ages of 18 to 35 with 1 or 2 kids, is a vastly different message than one between a male between the ages of, the same type, right? With no kids or 2 kids. So for them, I would say, gosh, this is going to come out probably wrong, but I would say look, if you want to, I guess almost the same thing. If you want to provide for your family, the best type of way that you could potentially do that is to invest into an asset that has some really fantastic asymmetrical returns, as opposed to something like on the stock market or things you could do like that. And you actually control it, and you can leave that to your kids as time goes on. I mean, that would be something. But right now, if you're talking about refugees in particular that are going across, I think the message there is, if you want to retain some of your value, it's not going to be in the fiat. We've already seen that. It's not going to be in the gold tokens. Good luck not getting robbed as you're fleeing across these lines. It would probably be a crypto like Bitcoin. Just remember your mnemonic phrase.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's a stretch, though.
Yeah, we are actually working on something sort of in a similar vein coming up soon. But any thoughts from you, Ben, on that?
Not really.
If you knew you had, I'll give you a hard scenario: 24 hours to live, and you had to say to your wife, "Here, you got to leave. You got to flee the state, flee the country, go to Mexico, jump in the car. This is all my crypto. This is how you store it. This is how you get it across the border." What would you say to your wife? You have 20 seconds.
To be completely honest, I mean, if I'm being completely honest, knowing the situation, I would begrudgingly probably just sell all my crypto, put it in US dollars, and make it easy on her.
Good stuff. Well, it's good, honest advice. Okay.
Don's answer.
Scoobs25. Hi, guys. Thank you for everything you do, especially in these shite times. If Vlad pushes the button, what will the West do?
What is the term, Ben? Not zero-sum game, but whoever...
Mutually assured destruction?
Yeah, exactly. So if he pushes the button, that's pretty much it. I mean, we're not here talking to you. you're in fallout shelters. That's the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game that no one wins, you know. I mean, even if you're not directly hit, everything, the environment would be completely different. It's going to affect all of us for the rest of our lives. So it's not really a scenario I want to think too much about. Let's say this: if that happens, I don't think the price of Bitcoin is going to be the main topic to talk about anymore.
A bigger fish to fry. And apparently nuclear weapons are a deterrent, and hopefully calmer minds will prevail. From Phoenix Zohar, U3 Rock. Ben, do you have a tier or way to buy just your charts, trading view indicators?
Interesting question.
No, but actually, I did put out a couple public videos recently showing how to make your own trading view indicators in PineScript. So I would recommend maybe watching some of those, because I think it can seem kind of scary at first, but really a lot of it's very, very straightforward if you just spend a few minutes learning how to do it. So go watch that video and maybe see if you can figure out how to make them for yourself. It's not as hard as you might think.
And that video was recently published?
Yeah, I think the title of it is like making your own trading view indicator or something. And then also in addition to that, I told people to go over to my subreddit, Into the Cryptoverse, and post their own. After the tutorial, I said, all right, go create your own trading view indicator, and then we'll talk about them. And so if you want to go find some other indicators that some other people made after either watching my video or ones they'd already made, you can actually go to that subreddit, and a lot of them actually provided the source code so that you could actually copy it, put it in PineScript, and then you can play around with it. So that's what I would actually suggest doing, and you can pretty quickly learn how to do it on your own.
Well, there's 5,000 people watching now, and that video is going to blow up. So thanks for sharing that. PineScript. UpSpinCreek. This might be a good question for you, Rob. Tax loss harvest strategies. For example, selling a miner at a loss to buy another Bitcoin correlated asset. What would you recommend? You spend a lot of time with tax accountants.
Yeah, as far as miners, I can't tell you which one to actually go for. But for tax loss harvesting, I will say this: this might be the last year we get that little tax advantage. I hear rumblings of different parts of Congress who are wanting to get rid of that. And actually, I think it was even Michael Saylor who talked about how it's actually detrimental to the space, because it kind of rewards people for selling things off and then getting off and just doing whatever you want to do. I was like, that could be true. So I'll just tell you this: if you're going to sell your miner for a loss and then get into something else, I mean, you can do that. But the question you want to ask yourself is like, well, how new is that miner? When did you actually get it? How much does it actually produce? And is it really not giving you the amount of Bitcoin, or is it just the fact that you have one miner and the electricity is super high in your place and you're not able to mine Bitcoin? Maybe mining isn't for you, and might be different alternatives. And in that case, just buy Bitcoin. That'd probably be the best answer. Not financial advice, just an opinion.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I know it's been a sucky day, everybody. Markets are down. Everybody's really rattled. And Bitcoin has taken a 6.8% dip in the last 20 hours. However, it has gone up 600 points in the last 20 minutes. So looks like we may have bottomed right just at the 39,000 level. I know a lot of people had their sniper rifles out, excuse the terminology, to pick up sub 40K Bitcoin. I was chatting with a few this morning, so hopefully they got some. And a big thank you as well to the moderators in the chat, as well as Kaupono, St. Jude Needs Us, Tuesday's Dragonfire, Kiwi Robin, and Elgar Calda. Any final closing thoughts, team? I know last week I was very bullish going into the weekend, and it turned out to be quite good. And I always like to ask this question: how do you feel? Let's look at the last 5 days. Like we shot up. What was it, on the 28th? And we had that big explosive squeeze, and then it was okay for 4 or 5 days, and then just the saber rattling, the FUD news spread by the media just rattled all the markets. What do you think will happen? Do you think, calmer minds will prevail? More talks in Belarus on the border?
I could see it. I mean, all these things that are going on. The only thing I can tell you is just worry about the sphere that you can control, and everything outside of that, just realize that's uncontrollable for you. So that's all I have.
That's a great pearl of wisdom. Go out and enjoy the vitamin D and the fresh air, and put all this crypto charts behind you, because you're right. We can't control it. I can say though, just been blown away by the amount of good news for this space and Bitcoin from so many different opposing points of view, whether it be war, whether it be authoritarian governments, whether it be adoption in places like Lugano and Switzerland and other places around the world. It's been staggering. Ben, any final thoughts from you? Heavy Bitcoin, heavy stablecoins. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we talk about the downside risk. We talk about the potential floor. Truth is, no one knows. I mean, no one really knows what's going to happen. I spent a lot of my time in late 2020 and early 2021 when it was rallying, constantly worrying about the downside risk, and it just kept going higher. I say this just as being in the space for a while, just always consider the downside risk no matter what the price is. But look, we could bottom here. We might bottom at 39K and move higher. One of the best ways I found to get through this market, it's harder for me to do that now that I have a YouTube channel, I talk about crypto. But before I had a YouTube channel, the best way that I would get through this market is I would just not watch it for a month or two at a time, and then just come back to it. It'll still be here in a month. It'll still be here in 2 months. It's not going anywhere. And there will be brighter times ahead, even if it's not today.
Yeah. And sometimes the darkest times are right before the dawn. And Bitcoin does Bitcoin things. So you can wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, $10,000 candle. Where'd that come from? Who knows? All I know is some of the metrics that are out there are still extremely positive, extremely bullish, and we'll get through this. Smarter minds will prevail, and let's all pray for peace. With that, happy Friday to the audience. Big thank you as well, Rob and Ben. Love you guys, and please subscribe to their channels. Their link is below. You can't miss it if you haven't already. Pearls of wisdom every single day. Thanks all.
Thanks all. Bye.